Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the Tuesday episode, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is the vault, episode 332. How to raise money for a trust. Definitely wanted to do this episode. It's actually very apropos, very up to date for a lot of the consultations we've gotten recently from trustees. So always appreciate everyone tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everyone that tunes in live, listens in the replay. Feel free to hit the like, subscribe, and look forward to hearing from you all at christian@trustchristian.com. Once again, if you're reaching out, we got a workshop planned for our next group of trustees. Feel free to reach out, christian@trustchristian.com. Trustee Training is enrolling students for our next workshop coming up in September here. So definitely looking to make sure that the trustees get a real good tune up here. As you all can see, we do consistent workshops throughout the year for trustees to keep them in a loop. 1 day workshops. So we look forward to hearing from you all for the next workshop. Once again, that's christian@trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you all and moving forward with trustee training for yourself, your families, whoever you're dealing with, because people in trust deal with people in trust. So we're going to talk about a very important conversation that a lot of people like to ask in consultations. They state this quite frequently. This is the Vault, episode 332, How to Raise Money for a Trust. So, when we talk about trust, it's in all caps. We're talking about pretty much any general person. We can say how to raise money for a person. We can say how to raise money for a contract. And so this is very general in its approach, but we want to address the interest of people raising money, capital raising, whether they're doing, what is that, crowdfunding, whether they're doing cold calling towards individual investors. So we always want to talk about the details of what really plagues a lot of employees and investors. So we didn't want to go there, but we wanted to talk about how to raise money for trust because so many people contact the vault and say, well, what if we don't have anything? What if we don't have anything? What if we don't have anything? How do we raise money? How do we grow assets inside of trust when we don't have anything? So how do you raise money for a trust? Is people utilizing their skills, talents, and abilities on behalf of the entity. But how does this demystify the audience? How does this demystify, how does this mystify the people? How is it that they don't grasp that you have to go out and add value to the entity because you're the greatest asset in the beginning if there is nothing? How do you capital raise? Capital raising is coming from pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and contacting people you wouldn't normally contact. That is capital raising. Capital raising may be calling friends and family, soliciting for funds, raising funds. How to raise money for a trust. Appreciate Tulsa, Oklahoma for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Tulsa, Oklahoma for tuning in live, listening to replay. How do you raise money for a trust? They say, well, when you get in the entity, that's when I find out that I have nothing. So where do I start? You start with where are you now? Where's the first generation at? What is the first generation going to sacrifice? Are they going to sacrifice time? Are they going to sacrifice ego? Are they going to sacrifice being a servant and being selfish? Which one are they going to sacrifice? Are you focused on going on vacations in this lifetime to make sure that your great grandchildren have some type of fighting chance in capitalism? Capital raising. How to raise money in a trust comes from many different angles. A lot of people say, "Well, where do you start?" It's always the biggest question. If you don't have anything, so where do you start? Well, the biggest thing is looking at the mandate of the company, looking at the contract of the company, and seeing what abilities that you have to exercise that go in harmony with the contract. Oh, Judge Christian is just going over my head. I need you to slow it down because, capital raising, or raising money, it doesn't sound like I'm working for it, which you are. You're working for it. How do you raise money for a trust? You work for the money. What was it? Was it an estate planning tool? What was it used for? What was the intent of it? Can you go out and solicit? Why not? Why not go out and solicit and grow the assets of the trust? Why not? Well, I don't know what solicit really means. It means you're going out and marketing, you're going out and advertising. It's interesting that they call lawyers solicitors. They solicit their services to raise money. This is how it's done, ladies and gentlemen. How to raise money. There's maybe a few books out there. You contact Devout Christian at trustchristian.com. We'll feel free to share. We really like to get a pulse of who we're talking to because there are many books out there on the topic. We would like to say that we've already written a book on capital raising over at the Vault. But a lot of times, it's not that it's hit or miss. It's just that you're going to have to win some and you're going to have to lose some. So in turn, it's not about how many winners or losers you have. It's about how much money was the whole situation going down, and did you come up profitable or did you come up in a negative? And that's what capital raising entails. And traditionally, there should be never a negative approach to capital raising because it's focused all about capital raising in that particular regard. So when we talk about trust, money should be going towards things, giving money away, making money, giving it away, and in turn, that's how you capital raise. You have to make money giving it away. The family has to be in a stronger position than it was before it started. It doesn't go backwards. Going backwards happens outside of the entity. We're looking to hold assets. How do you raise money? You have to get into vehicles that make money produce money. Not every vehicle you may enter into may do that. Doing multiple things. We get so many people that come to the phone and say, "Oh man, I need to focus. I need to focus." And we're like, "Well, are you doing multiple things? Yeah. Are they working? Yeah." Then, we're still going to continue moving forward. That's what's going on. If something is a distraction or a hindrance, then let's not move forward on it. But there are many entrepreneurs, that investors that go through the program, Trustee Training, that have multiple ventures going on at one time. And there's nothing wrong with that, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody said this past week they don't think they have time because they're a truck driver. We had to let them know. We have trustees that have been truck drivers for years. We've done episodes specifically for truck drivers. This is where we are in the marketplace. It's people say, "Oh, I don't have time to learn and have to study." Well, we understand. How to raise money entails having a student mentality towards who you're talking to. People say, put capital raising in a box. How do you put something that's not something that everyone can learn to do? Because it's not. How do you put it in a box then? Oh, you got to have a script, Trust Christian. You got to have a script. That's one thing you got to have. How do you raise the money? You got to have a consistent pitch. You got to have a consistent, less than 60-second pitch to your investors. That's what you got to have. That's what some of the mentors have said. That's what we've seen in environments. We've seen People literally get on stage and have maybe 10, 20, 30, 50 people have a 60-second pitch. How do you capital raise? You have to contact people. You have to have good follow-up game. Here we go. How do you raise money? You have an excellent follow-up game. It's sort of like you understand in golf that you're not going to get a hole in one every time, so you don't just focus on driving the ball. You focus on your wedges. You focus on your putting. You just want to get close to the hole. Because how many hole in ones do you really get in a game? Maybe one, maybe two. Not too many. But rest assured, there's a high probability that you're going to have to pull out your second and third stroke clubs, your putter. How do you raise money? You go to networking events where they're talking about raising money because there are other investors in the room. How do you raise money? You go to environments such as the Rotary Club, such as Toastmasters. These are organizations that allow you to practice your getting in front of business people. Some people say, what about the Chamber of Commerce? Well, chambers are usually, they have a broader scope, but look into different communities. We have many communities that you can look into to raise money. See, people, they don't want to go and get their hands dirty and go to a cigar club or a wine tasting or a whiskey tasting. And in turn, they don't think that there's money in those rooms when there is. They have wine magazines, they have whiskey magazines, they have uh, bourbon uh, magazines, they have cigar magazines. These are people that have meeting organizations, associations. That's how you raise money, ladies and gentlemen. You go into these environments because these people are okay with speaking about, selling a wine or selling a whiskey or buying a whiskey. That's what they're there for. They're there either to buy the whiskey or they're there to sell the whiskey or they're doing a tasting to figure out if they're going to buy or if they're not. And this is the advantage of going to these environments and being in these environments is that you know this now, that you're armed when you go in these environments because you know who's there already. It's not an abnormal thing to say, well, I'm going to go to a wine tasting and not buy wine. Usually when people go to wine tastings, they buy wine. So there are people there that have capital. Wine's not cheap. We can talk about cheap wines, but the wine game is made for people that they call them connoisseurs and things of that nature. How do you raise money? Trust Christian, you're giving us the alternative way of doing it. We thought that, it was just going to have to be get on the phone and talking all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, we've mentioned Rotary Club, we've mentioned Toastmasters, we've mentioned golf memberships. Some people say, oh no, there's no way I would do the golf membership. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about doing business on a golf course. Of course, people are capital raising. How do you raise money? You have to at least be able to go on a golf course. You have to be at least in these environments where money is at, where money's being spent. No, you don't have to do this, Trust Christian. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to go on the internet. We're telling you how to do things with and without the internet. It's easy to do it with the internet. Anybody can do it on the internet, right? You put up a good flyer, you put up a good ad, and it sounds good, it looks good, and people contact you, and you're off to the races. Some people are gonna bite, some people are not. There's millions of people on the internet, billions of people on the internet, so you're only looking for the few, correct? That's how the internet game works nowadays, right? So let's move forward, ladies and gentlemen. How do you raise money? You have an organized plan of names, of people, of organizations that you're going to reach out to. And, we'll give the light work in because there is no guarantee of that you're going to raise the capital. So many people say, well, what are the activities that are necessary in order to raise capital? Well, one of the biggest things are, that is essential is having a follow up organized list. You have to have an organized list. Every great one that we've seen has that. You have an organized list of whether it's capital raising techniques, capital raising studies. These are just different things that are going to be focused on capital raising. It could be making phone calls. It could be doing financial presentations. We always tell our trustees when it comes to capital raising, especially when you're soliciting on the public side. When you're soliciting on the public side, you're utilizing some type of presentation on the public side. You're utilizing that. You're utilizing some type of presentation. And so when we see trustees that have some type of presentation on the public side, you have to get that in front of as many eyeballs as you possibly can so you can get people in favor of the cause and sharing the cause with people. And that's something that when we talk about capital raising, it's the same thing. It's not just the cause, it's just what's the project, allowing people to see for themselves. And, one of the things that people don't really address in capital raising is the how, which deals with the attitude. How is your attitude? Are you greedy? Are you are you focused on yourself? Are you focused on helping the other individual, the party that you're dealing with? Do you feel like it's a blessing? Do you feel like it's an advantage position for them? Do you feel like you distinguish yourself from the marketplace and still feel comfortable? Because how you raise money is based off of your attitude. And that's a very, when you come into the elite environments, you'll see that, PowerPoint presentations, when they traditionally are going over capital raising, they're going over your attitude. They're going over people skills. They're going over relationships. That's what they're going over. How to raise money and trust is about relationships because people and trust deal with people and trust. That's the way it works. That's the way it works, ladies and gentlemen. People in trust deal with people in trust. So when we talk about meeting face to face for our next workshop, when we talk about meeting face to face for workshops right now, those things are essential because investors, business people want to meet other business people if they're in trust because they already are in trust. It's being in the environment with the high net worth investors, the ultra high net worth investors, because they have the ability to have a tailwind fund. They're able to get rid of hundreds of thousands of dollars just because they want to see what new venture they can put money into. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, seed funds, venture funds. There's more money than there are deals, ladies and gentlemen. So how do you raise money in trust? Someone said, "Well, how do I go out and find the investors if I'm doing?" Because we have quite a few people that have come through recently with real estate and talking about wholesaling deals, and they were talking about wholesaling the deal, and they were, "Well, where are we going to find the investors if we have the deals, if we have the properties? Where are we going to find the investors?" Oh, don't worry. When you have a list of properties that you can consistently say that you're moving around and getting around to people, oh, don't worry. You will not lack for an investor. The universe is going to give you what you're putting out. If you're giving out a good deal, you're going to find a good investor. If you're not putting out a good deal, you might not find a good investor. You got to remind people of these universal laws so they can know, okay, well, I got to sow it so I can reap it. And the way that you reap it is by your sowing. That's business. That's life. And in business, you're planting seeds. That's what you're doing in business. People think, oh, I'm out here and I'm going to make the seed grow. You can't make seeds grow. You just water them, you cultivate them. Oh, that's the work. It's the maintenance. You planted the seed. You planted the seed of what your intention was to do. But the cultivation is where people fall asunder. They fall off the bandwagon. It's the cultivation. You think anybody's complaining about the harvest? Oh man, the harvest was plentiful, but I sure didn't get enough. People are happy when they get a harvest. The cultivation is the work. How to raise money for a trust deals with the cultivation of your mind, knowing that there's more money than there are deals. And since there's more money than there is deals, there's more people allocating money to new deals all the time. So the money's available. So you got to stay focused. When do you start looking for capital, Trust Christian? When you have it all for that project. There are companies all the time that are on the market. They sell off shares all the time. They're raising capital. They're selling their position. They're becoming liquid. In what? Cash. How do you raise money? You got to solicit and say you need cash. How do you raise money? You put together quality PPMs to allow people to have a contract, something that they can touch, something that they can say, well, you know what? Look, this project requires about 10, 15, 20,000 plus. So, you know what? We're going to give people some type of insurance. How about that? Are you giving people some type of insurance on their project? But think about it. The Gov has insurance with standard issue securities. What about your projects, though? How do you raise money? You give out a contract, letting people know what you're doing. That's that's how things are done on the private side. That's how things are done on the public side. How many people are doing business with outside of contracts? How do you raise the money? You have the contracts in place. Some people even asked us that when we were talking about the wholesale deals the other day. They were asking us, well, what does the sample contract look like? Specifically, when you're raising money for a trust and it's doing wholesale deals, when it's raising money. Well, clearly, the trust is name is on the contract. It's just that simple. What are you doing business in your name for? It's trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Carrollton, Ohio for tuning in live, listening to replay. We got Mississippi tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Mississippi. Always appreciate Carrollton, Ohio for tuning in live, listening to replay. Feel free to hit the like and the subscribe button to the channel. Christian at trustchristian.com. We got our next Trustee Training workshop coming up. We got it planned out, got a date locked in September. Looking forward to the trustees. We're going to have mentors in the room. We're looking to do what is it that we do best. Trustee Training, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. How do you raise money for a trust? You got to be in a room with other trustees because people in trust deal with people in trust. Simple as that. How do you know you can trust somebody? Because you're willing to extend yourself in the same manner in which someone else is. That's trust. It's being able to be in a room in a non-disclosure environment. That's trust. We're all in a non-disclosure agreement. That's trust. That's the first step to a trust, is a non-disclosure agreement. How do you raise money? You get people to sign a private non-disclosure agreement. If they're not willing to sign a non-disclosure agreement about how great your proprietary investment, capital raising, money raising project is, then we already know they're not trustworthy. They're going to be calling you every day. They might sick their lawyers on you, say you stole. They might have a lawsuit out for you. And you might have a contract or may not have a contract. So a non-disclosure protects that position. But we also know that some people may not want to say that an NDA protects them in that position, but then you still have a contract on the back end. So how to raise money is through contracts. Oh no, Trust Christian, you're speaking that trading language. You're speaking the language of contracts now. See how it all goes together because it's finance, because it's contracts, because it's one of the most powerful things in the universe. Is a contract? It's a bind. It's your word is bond. So when these people try to contact the vault and say, oh, well, my birth certificate is worth $100 million, how are you raising the money for the contract then? Well, I'm going to issue a debt note. Think about this mentality. They're going to issue a debt note into society. They're not going to add value. They're going to issue a debt note. But then they're going to say, oh, no, Trust Christian, we're very smart. We're intelligente. We're going to guess what? We're going to issue a debt note because then that issues a positive note. So it wipes out because it's double entry bookkeeping. It's accrual accounting, right? Isn't this what they're spewing on the internet? Wait, your birth certificate is worth some money? You think you're going to shortcut the shortcut in capital raising and being able to connect with other people? Oh, the birth. We got to address this. We have people that listen to the vault that had contacted the vault for many years, and this is what they say. Oh, trust Christian in the vault. The birth certificate. The birth certificate. The Moorish paradigm. Oh, well, here we go. The treasury account. I don't need to go out and get the other man's money. Well, me being born is worth some money. You really think so, ladies and gentlemen? You really think you being born was worth something? Let's go look at it then. Let's go look at it. They have a debt clock, at least for the states. Is it real? Is it not? And it says each citizen is in debt. How does that work? You might actually have some savings right now. But are you able to express that? Because it looks like there's a perpetual clock going against people. Has this been introduced into the society already? Is it sitting there right there under your nose? But I don't know. The birth certificate is worth some money. Right. Back to capital raising the proper way. People say, oh, well, can't go to the bank because how does the trust build credit? This is one of the issues that we have. Raising money for the trust and we don't have any money. But you have a skill. Skills pay bills. So as a trustee, by you exercising your skills, you pay bills for the trust. The trust pays its bills. What happens when you contract with a lawyer and a lawyer does research and the lawyer doesn't get paid until they finish their research? It's a skill that pays a bill. They do contracts. We hear this all the time. People sit on the internet. They created a goddamn Ponzi scheme for these fools. We got people sit on the internet. They try to consider themselves, big dogs and all of this good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, you gotta watch yourself. People in trust deal with people in trust. Think about it. Are you dealing with the guru not in trust, or are you just going and listening because they got a good sounding podcast, because they got a good sounding show, because they let you visually see them? But then we do the private workshops. Why? Because it's private. It's people in trust. People in trust only deal with people in trust, whether you know it or not. So why would they have something public? It's not for everybody. It's private. But how do you raise the money, though? That's what they say. Well, Trust Christian, I really don't want to tell you I'm leaving my job. Trust Christian in the vault, we're leaving our job. So how do we raise money and we got a job? That's the best position to be in. Because when you're capital raising now, you can almost make the call, you can contact anybody, you can do the extra because it's extra. And now you're working from an abundance mindset, from a surplus mindset. Oh, I never thought about that, Trust Christian. Because if you're not, capital raising can seem hard. Oh, Trust Christian, we're hearing every excuse from the investors. The investors out here, some of them want to swim big. Some of them want to swim hard. Some of them want to swim fast. Some of them want to swim underwater. The investors are all over the place. But we know one thing for sure. Two things for certain. When you do the simple task of asking people, do they want to, soliciting, as we call it, because that's what the lawyers do, solicit in the proper environments. Because think about it, you got to be in the proper environment. People say, oh, are you going to be a big fish in a little pond, or are you going to be a big fish in a big pond? Because we got to be in environments that allow us to flourish and flap our wings as capital raisers. So once again, in the high net worth environments, traditionally the conversation is, when it comes to capital raising, is traditionally about communications, and dealing with others, period. It's about relationships. But then we have this message once again over the internet that, oh, you can capital raise by yourself. Raising capital by yourself takes a lot longer. We'll say that OPM is not disdained, OPM is okay. But once again, when we're talking about capital raising, are you doing it on your own, or are you doing it in stride with other people, in relationships? And that comes down to communication skills. So once again, that skill can pay your bills, can pay bills, communications. How do you raise money? We mentioned it's the follow-up game. It's being organized. It's investing in your education. Oh, Trust Christian, what do you mean? Raising money is a skill? Ladies and gentlemen, raising money is a skill. Whether it is making phone calls, whether it is trading out of the trust account, whatever skill it is, it's a skill. Capital raising is a skill. Working a job is a skill. You got to be consistent at and good at someone telling you to do something at a certain time and you do it. But we're talking about now the trustees having to make this quantum leap from someone telling them what to do, what time to show up, when they can go on vacation, to them being free and making free decisions. How do you make those free decisions? The surplus decisions. Remember, this is the abundance mentality decisions. You ready, ladies and gentlemen? You write it down and you do it consistently. You power it out. You show up. Simple as that. And it gets easier. What are the mentors? We have to share this with you all. If you're listening to this from the vault, it may take 20 years for you to become an overnight success. But do you really want to face those generational wealth gaps? It only took 20 years for you to build generational wealth. Think about it. The average person is supposed to work a job from 25 to 65. That's what they say the average age is. So from 25 to 65. And if you were able to build generational wealth in 20 years, is that bad? Is that disdained? Oh, well, what if Trust Christian I could do it in 5 to 10 years? Is that bad? I just got on the path of wealth building. Appreciate someone typing into the chat. They say, can you talk about 401ks? These are government sponsored programs, government sponsored retirement programs. These are things you have to get in front of the person that has this contract, because it is a contract, and see what the details are. We had someone reach out recently and send over their Roth IRA contract that created a trust for them to invest. But these are the things that when they got in trustee training, they were able to identify different trust contracts. And because they have a Roth IRA from their job scenario, they were able to say, well, you know what? From the job IRA, they created a trust for them to invest. But this is what they sent over to the vault for us to look at. And it's just a contract on the public side saying that this is what's going on as far as them allowing them to go out and capital raise from the Roth IRA or whatever it is. We could even talk about these entities. You all know how these entities work. If you have these entities, if you don't know, then you can go research these entities. We do not endorse these entities, and nor do we propose that you do these entities, but we do recommend that you do sound research, and that means going and looking at the contract, because this trustee sent over the contract and said it's just a quite interesting thing to see the contract, but really it's the public contract. They have public laws in there. They have who has control over, who's the grantor, who's the trustee, and who's the beneficiary. And what's interesting is, to see that the Roth IRA is the beneficiary and almost the grantor, it just lets you know they really put you in a position of liability almost, but you're not, because you can lose money in these positions, at risk. And so in turn, now we see that these are just positions that they allow people to do. So you can look into those things. We don't propose these things, but these are the things that people definitely have, and in turn, it's something you have to look into and say, how are we going to move when it comes to this particular entity in that particular case? So That's one way of raising capital. Raising capital is a skill. So here we go. How do you raise the money for a trust? You got to set a goal as the trustee. And as you set that goal, you got to hit that goal. Once you hit that goal, you set bigger goals. And you continuously do that. And in turn, you'll see that capital raising is not as hard as you think. Definitely should have time frames on it, ladies and gentlemen, and definitely should have an amount on it as well. So it's never just, oh, I'm trying to make an abundant amount, and it's never, I'm not trying to make it until forever. It has deadlines on it. How much capital is the entity going to grow, whether it's taking care of bills or taking care of surplus, growing in and reinvesting in capital. And so we're talking monthly, weekly, and obviously if you get it weekly down to daily. And that really puts the drivers on how capital is going to be raised because you're looking at different opportunities now and figuring out ways on how to raise the capital. And does it require now for a person to take to the trustees, the board of trustees, to sit at the board and say, well, what are our skill sets, and what do we bring to the table? Because obviously, as a trustee, you have to bring something to the table, and that's very important. That's what's the issue is. People say, well, what do we need to bring to the table? Clearly, you're raising money, so you're not bringing any money. Is that the elephant in the room? Is that the issue in the room? Is raising money? No. So what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the table? Are you bringing your time? What skills do you have? So this comes down to leadership assessment skills, assessing skill sets, assessing what people bring to the table as trustees. When we talk about trustees, moving forward in trusteeship, we're talking about that. Appreciate Carrollton, Ohio for tuning in live, listen, replay. Always appreciate Carrollton, Ohio. So once again, when we talk about you raising that capital, what are the skill sets that you bring to the table? Have you done a proper assessment? That's what the trustee trainer provides to our trustees. Is once again, when we talk about communication skills, we have to talk about assessing your behavioral skills. What are your skill sets? What do you bring to the table? Just doing a proper assessment of what the trustees bring to the table, so we can assess how they're going to implement their skill sets and even their weaknesses with the system. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to raise capital from a position of, hey, we know our skill sets. Everybody's not good at making phone calls. Everybody's not a people person, but there are people that are in trust that are raising capital and they're good at sitting behind a computer. And so, in turn, we can see that there's various ways to raise capital. And so, we just wanted to share that with you all. We look forward to hearing from you all. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. We got our next workshop coming up in September. Feel free to reach out. Look forward to hearing from you all. Peace. Enjoy.